My country is of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Prayer today by Phil Hood, pledged by Teresa Frazier, four-way test by Charlie Burr.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the food we serve today. May it be a good service to those as we go forward. As we get out and about, I hope that our health with the COVID away. We will all those people across the world who need it.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Four-way test, things we say or do. Thanks for your do. Number one.
Is it true?
Number two.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number three.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Number four.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Number five.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the April 30th meeting. Visitors today, we have Mr. Nathan Neese is here. There'll also be Board of Directors meeting May the 10th, Monday, May 10th at 5:30. Fair steering Wednesday, May the 12th at 5:30. Remind everybody, truck and tractor pull is coming up. We had a meeting this past week on it. I'm in the process of getting the signs redated, so we'll have a bunch of yard signs and stuff to go out. We also have a lot of these posters up here. Anybody who would take and help get these distributed out, please do. And I have many more, so take all you can use, please. With that, Miss Teresa, would you like to make your way up here?
I would like to welcome our guest speaker today, Mr. Darryl Richardson. He is the Assistant Director for the TBI Drug Investigation Division. You can make your way on up, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate everything the Rotary Club does. As a former member of this community, I've always admired the good things that you've done here, and it's an honor to be here before you today to talk about what the drug investigation does. And so I have a PowerPoint kind of to keep me on point because I tend to go long, and there's a few pictures. I don't know if you'll be able to see them or not, but if Mr. Phillips oblige me there, we'll get to them. We'll just go to that first slide there. Once you get it going. All right. We'll talk about just current drug trends. And if you get tired of hearing me, you don't want to talk about it, I brought Nathan, who can talk about some other stuff. He works in another division at TBI, but we're just gonna talk about the trends that are affecting your community here in Lawrenceburg, and not just here, it's communities all over Tennessee. The big things is marijuana, and I know there's a lot of talk about legalization of marijuana. There's just a few little problems with it. I'm not here to debate whether it should be legalized or not, but just talk about the problems that we see in law enforcement with it. And then the bigger things that we see are methamphetamine, opioids, and heroin and fentanyl. That's causing a lot of the problems that we're dealing with today. Let's see. How do you shift that?
Mouse should work.
Oh. So sometimes the way we discover drug trends is based on what's submitted to our lab. And of course, I apologize about not having some updated statistics, but sometimes the lab has a little bit of a backlog. and COVID related stuff. And sometimes these things just don't get updated, but you can see the ongoing trend of these things. And if you look in the orange, that's mainly methamphetamine, and that's total submittals to the lab. And if the top left is 2015 all the way down over here to 2018, you see how it just keeps growing. And one of the things I want you to look at here is this little sliver of green in 2015 and how it keeps growing up to 2018. It just keeps getting bigger. That's fentanyl, and that's some of the problems that we're going to talk about today. So why I put marijuana in here is because it's one of the same drugs that consistently shows up and gets crimes against persons in TIBRS reports, which are Tennessee Incident-Based Reporting System reports that are submitted by your local departments to TBI. And so they keep a record of that. So marijuana is the #1 drug, other than these other ones that are consistently higher. You'll see it's in blue here, the light blue. Also, it's also one of the drugs that shows up consistently in weapons violations that occur around the state. And so usually where there's drug violence and guns and stuff like that, marijuana is always present. And you see methamphetamine is also there in a big way. So some of the problems we have too is also determining the difference between hemp and marijuana. There's a lot of hemp grows now because hemp's legal, and you can't really tell a difference in the way it looks. You have to do a little test on it to determine. That's what hemp used to look like, and now it looks more like I think we've uploaded the wrong PowerPoint, but that's okay. I can work with this one. I think, is there a way to?
I would need your.
No, it's okay. We'll just go on this way. Yeah, it is the wrong one. But anyway, so there's a lot of violence also associated with marijuana because there's a lot of money involved in it, which is why I kind of needed the other slide because I was going to show you all the. Okay, yeah. Now corrected him to upload the wrong one. But what I was going to talk about is just the money associated with it, which leads to a lot of violence, which in the county over in 2016, we started an investigation there just on some marijuana grows, which is just kind of routine stuff. We get complaints on stuff all the time, and marijuana is still illegal in Tennessee. And so that led us into a larger case involving a bunch of gang members who were growing marijuana all over the United States. Ultimately led us to a location down in Miami where there was roughly $24 million hidden in a wall of a house down there. And that's just began here in rural Giles County. This is kind of the longer extended version. That's why I was kind of.
Darryl, how big of an area are you over?
Well, we've got all 95 counties now in Middle Tennessee. And so previously, there's 28 counties in Middle Tennessee that we supervise, and Lawrence County's been one of those. But so right now I have all 95 counties.
I apologize.
No, it's all right.
I think it's so large that I can't get it in the. Which county is the worst, Darryl?
Well, Davidson County in Middle Tennessee is the biggest problem because over the years, it's always been kind of a source city for drugs in Tennessee. Everything kind of just comes to Nashville and then branches out. And so like you'll see folks from Lawrenceburg travel to Nashville to pick up drugs. Also, we're seeing a big trend now of people going across the state lines into Florence and other areas in Alabama like Athens and picking up narcotics. I can pull that up right from right here if that's all right.
I'll have it here just a second.
It's the current, it's the top one. It's the current drug trends. So with that being said, the drug cartels have a big presence here. And so the reason the marijuana is a problem also with them is they use that to fund other operations, to get other narcotics, do human trafficking and stuff like that across the border, to smuggle kids, families, and things like that into the United States. So that's what funds a lot of their other things that they're involved in. And I know some of you probably got to go if I get too long on this. I just want to just slideshow there, I guess. No, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. Too, it's the,
Still wrong one?
yeah, it's the.
How about that?
No. I probably should just deleted all the rest of them on there. I apologize. It's my fault.
I've got a different one up there now.
It's all right.
Or not.
It's okay. It's the same one, but it's okay. We'll try to get through it. Just had some good stuff on there from your local sheriff's department that I kind of wanted you guys to see of the stuff they've been doing. So anyway, without this PowerPoint, I guess I'll just kind of ramble on. But anyway, so that leads us into a bigger problem into Tennessee that we're dealing with is the methamphetamine. Methamphetamine's always been a big problem in Tennessee, and it kind of rolls in trends. And so when we first started this job in 2002, what we used to see is a lot of meth labs. You probably heard about them. We local department here was responding to a lot of meth labs. I responded to a lot of meth labs. And as trends went on, in 2007, we seen a big shift from Mexican-made methamphetamine that's made across the border in bulk and shipped here in liquid forms. And then it's mass produced in labs here in bigger quantities. And so that kind of went away. And then we went into what was called the shake and bake method, where people were just utilizing 2-liter bottles to make methamphetamine, so they could just basically make it in their car or wherever. And so then you started seeing people reporting to your local ER with major burns, explosions, all kinds of catastrophes we were doing in apartment complexes or hotels where just innocent people were staying. And so we were seeing lots of incidents like that around with it. And so the shift again occurred back in 2013 to where we started seeing more of, because the drug cartels don't miss an opportunity to make money. So they know that we were second in the nation in meth labs. Luckily for us, West Virginia was number 1, or we would have been right up there with them in the manufacture of meth. And so they know that. And so that's where they're going to start bringing it in. And that's why they move into our neighborhoods. I mean, they live right here amongst us. And sometimes it may be just, you may not recognize that they're here. But they did that so they could, obviously bring their product to us. And so now what we're seeing is it's increased dramatically over the last few months and even last year of the influx of methamphetamine. And how we know that is also the stuff that's submitted to our lab, but the price of drugs that we pay for, it gets cheaper. It's just simple supply and demand. If there's a lot of it, then it's cheaper. And if it's not a lot of it, the drugs are higher. So we're paying roughly now $2,500 for a pound of methamphetamine, where in 2007, we were paying $19,000 for a pound of methamphetamine. And so it's a big problem. It's a big problem here in Lawrenceburg, especially Summertown, really all over the 22nd Judicial District. And that's one thing about the PowerPoint. If I don't have my numbers, I couldn't show you, but because I can't, just getting older, you forget the numbers. And so I just wanted to show you how it's increased. But so that leads us into the other big problem too, that marijuana finances for the drug cartels, because as popularity of Mexican grown marijuana decreased and marijuana started being grown more legally in the United States, we see a lot of influx of marijuana like from California and places where it's legalized like Colorado that are brought back into Tennessee, and it's now higher priced marijuana. And so the drug cartel didn't want to miss out on that. So they started moving into these areas and strong arming their ways into these states where it's legalized to grow marijuana. And a lot of the marijuana we get comes straight from the cartel, even though it's coming from California and Colorado. And so what they did in Mexico because of that too, those places where they normally grew large amounts of marijuana, they just bulldozed those over and they started growing poppy to make opium and for heroin. And so because the opioid problem that we had for a long time, and that's what one of the slides was, just how I think we use 93% of the hydrocodone in the world. I mean, in the United States alone. So in Tennessee, we were number 2 in that as well, because mainly because of a lot of overprescribing that occurred early on from doctors and stuff like that. You know, doctors just trying to treat you. If you're saying you're hurting, they're giving you pain medication to prevent it. Well, what that's doing is getting these patients slowly addicted to narcotics, and so they can't function or live without it. So they're taking more and more hydrocodone to try to ease that pain. And so in an inadvertent effect of that, when we started creating the controlled substance monitoring database, probably 2013 and 2014, which is where now doctors have to look to see if you've been shopping, if you've been to another doctor to get the same prescription, they're forced to do that now. So with what that did is it prevent addicts from being able to get additional medication. So they had to turn to something to feed this addiction that they had. And so that's when they started turning into heroin. And that's what the cartels recognized as well. So they saw that, and they, the influx of heroin into Tennessee, and we're seeing more and more of it. So it, started out $64,000 for a kilo of heroin. And now it's, trending somewhere around 40 because there's just mass supplies of it because of the, everything that's going on the border. And it doesn't, a secure border doesn't matter. As long as there's a demand for drugs, they're going to get their product here. But it's just an ongoing issue that it's just a war we're not winning, just to be quite frank about it. Because we make some large seizures, but we're just really skimming the top because, it's luck. I mean, it's skill too, but a lot of it's luck because you have to have perfect timing to get these seizures from these guys. And so as heroin progressed, they discovered, hey, we can, because it's just big expense for them to process all the heroin. So they think, well, we can get the same effect. These people that are addicted, we can get them just as high off of fentanyl. And so fentanyl's a man-made drug. I mean, you can, pharmacy students make it in their studies, and it can be made anywhere. But mainly a lot of the fentanyl that we see, even though the United States is the biggest, largest user of fentanyl, in the early 2000s and 90s, what we'd see is people that were overdosed on, they would rumble through cancer patients' trash and recover a fentanyl patch, because fentanyl patch is one of the strongest pain medications, and a fentanyl patch, is designed to release a little bit over time to a cancer patient to ease their pain. So people that are addicted to narcotics will go through their trash and get it, and then they would eat it. And so we were finding a lot of people overdose from soaking the fentanyl patch in their mouth. So it's been around for a number of years, and we are the largest user of it. But it goes back to what I said earlier, the drug cartels know that we have a bunch of addicted folks in here, so they're shoving this fentanyl and heroin in here now. So it's coming in a variety of forms. So what a user thinks he's buying is maybe heroin, but it really may be just almost straight fentanyl. And it only takes just like a smidgen of a little bit of fentanyl to overdose somebody and kill them. Of course, with everything, these guys build a tolerance up to it as they use it, and they can take more and more. But, they never know when they're going to get that lethal dose of it. Is one of the biggest problems. And it also comes in, one of the biggest things we're seeing right now that's in Lawrenceburg, as well as all these other communities, or these fake, they can order these pill presses off eBay with a little dye to shape a pill and to make it look like a regular Percocet or Lortab or anything. So where a user thinks he's just taking his normal 2 Percocets, he may be taking 2 fake Percocets, and it's got, the fentanyl doesn't, when they make those fake pills, the fentanyl doesn't absorb all the way into the pill. So it may just only be in one little section of it. So they'll take a half and it doesn't do anything for them because it's not really anything in it. And then they take the other half, and that's where the lethal dose of fentanyl is. And then that's why we're seeing so many overdose deaths. And so for every one fatal overdose, there's 15 other, overdoses just in general where they don't die, non-fatal. And I was go back to 2017 where when we first discovered this was a problem. It was July 4th weekend of 2017, and I think we had 24 overdoses respond almost the same day to an ER up in Murfreesboro. And so we're trying to figure out what that is. What's killing these folks? Because I think about 14 of them died. And so it ended up being those pills. And that's when we first realized that was what the problem was here in Middle Tennessee. And so we see that all the time. And the problem with a lot of it is the fentanyl, is the cartels and other people that sell it, they ship it through UPS, the Postal Service, and everything. So if one of those packages is busted, it could cause mass casualties. I mean, it would, they could, you know, if ISIS or one of these other terrorist organizations wanted to take out a lot of people, if they could find out how to get the fentanyl into the ventilation system of like an arena or something like that where a sporting event's going on, I mean, they could kill everybody in there. And so that's one of the, you know, it's a weapon of mass destruction as far as I'm concerned on that. But that's kind of it. I know I kind of lost track of time because of didn't have the PowerPoint. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, but I know you got questions and we'll cover back some of this other stuff I skipped over.
You hear a lot about mobile labs going on. Is that still happening?
Not as much because of the mass quantities of methamphetamine that are introduced by drug cartels. It's so you don't really hear, you might hear one or two every now and then. And that's one of the things, I don't remember the numbers, and that's why I put it in that slide, was it's just a mass decrease in the labs over the years of just how they steadily go down. The labs are going down, but the meth incidents are going up because there's still tons of methamphetamine, but no labs. Yes, sir.
You know, some of these states where marijuana is legal now,
Mhm.
state says it's legal, federal government says it's illegal. So how can you have something that's legal and illegal at the same time?
Well, that's something we've been struggling with because we're only tasked with enforcing whatever laws on the book. And so it's illegal in Tennessee, but then you get these people that move here from out of these areas where marijuana is legal and they're thinking, well, I can have this amount of marijuana on me because I've got this card that says I can. Well, that's null and void in Tennessee. And it's just a continuous problem. I mean,
It's like a dry county and a wet county.
exactly. It goes back to the old, the days where you had those like that here in Lawrence was a dry county, and I think Giles was a wet county. Yes, sir.
Ages, do you see methamphetamine or this age group more than?
It's mostly, it could be anywhere really from 18 or even younger to 45, 50. I mean, and you'll see these people, you may see them at the Walmart or something. You say, what's wrong with that guy? And I had some good pictures of how you could recognize them. I mean, they're just, their eyes may be just big as $50 and they're just wound up and they look like they can't be still for nothing. And, or they may have scabs on their face where they're just constantly picking. And I mean, it's kind of a sad story really, because when these people get introduced into the jail and they got those scabs, I mean, I think Nathan can attest to this probably at the Lawrence County Jail. I mean, they would sell the scabs or to other people in the jail who hadn't had any methamphetamine, or they may even urinate in a cup and sell their urine because of the meth byproducts that was still in there. So it's the length that addicts will go to, and it's how powerful really the drug is. And and the why they use it is really one of the ways to describe it is just the dopamine levels are through the roof. I think like for someone who smokes a cigarette, it might increase your dopamine level up to maybe 200, or if you anything that feels good may just be a little low number like that. But the dopamine level for methamphetamine, the way it makes them feel, is like 1250. This is like, even killed and up. I mean, and so that's why they use it, because the stories of housewives are like, well, I don't have any energy and I want to clean house, and next thing you know, somebody's told them about some methamphetamine. They think of it as a diet drug, and next thing you know, they're addicted, and their whole life has changed because they're constantly chasing methamphetamine. And I've seen, I don't know if you've ever seen it driving down the road, which is scary to me, but truck drivers or anyone else, I've seen them with a piece of aluminum foil with a lighter under aluminum foil, heating the methamphetamine up and smoking it while they drive because it
Keeps them away.
yeah, it keeps them awake. I'm not saying that's every truck driver, but I have seen that before. And it's just the way they utilize it. They'll smoke it like that, or they'll inject it. And when it gets to the point where they're injecting it, that's when you really start noticing a lot of effects on the body. Because if you think about it, you're introducing all these chemicals like anhydrous ammonia and all these other things into the body, and it's going to come out in the way of something. And so it comes out in the way of these big sores and where they're scratching and picking and stuff at it because they're always itching.
Has it gotten worse in the past couple of months with all the border issues?
It's consistently gotten worse because now the border seizes tons of drugs every day. I mean, they seize, and sometimes they're legitimate loads, but they're also what the drug cartel calls dummy loads, because they're going to give you this to get you distracted to get this other load in. So that happens frequently. So, you know, we think we're doing a good job. In reality, they're just playing this. But that's what they're yeah, that's their whole method. And an analogy is even on the interstate when they're transporting drugs from the border through up 40 to Tennessee, is they'll run multiple vehicles. So if they see an interdiction car on the side of the road, they may do something to totally distract that officer to get him to not pay attention to the load vehicle that may be coming through, because there's certain signs that these guys have conditions themselves to look for, the officers who are really good at what they do, but these guys will come through there and just completely distract them to try to get that load through. So it's a big game to them, and they're really good at it. I mean, I wish they weren't so good at it, but they really are. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is I-40 a major corridor?
Yes, it is.
Is it the major corridor?
It's the major corridor. But they also know that that law enforcement focuses on I-40 a lot. And so we do know that they will try to divert around that at some points where they know the interdiction is really focusing on. Memphis is a big area where interdiction focuses. The 23rd Judicial District, which is around Hickman County, they focus really heavily on interdiction. So the drug cartels know that. They'll use methods to try to not use a phone or whatever. But we get those messages sometimes where they'll have people they'll give them an alternate route around those areas, or they'll try to start using 64, which would come right through here if they're going to Chattanooga. One of the biggest areas for drug trafficking is Atlanta. It's a major source. Atlanta is a major source city to everywhere on the eastern seaboard. So the drugs will ultimately end up from the border through those little Texas towns up through New Orleans, I-10 up to over to come up I-75 in Atlanta, and then they'll come up through Tennessee to go to New York, other places, other major cities to traffic their drugs. And so it's weird how sometimes how these cities play roles. Even Detroit plays a big role as a hub city south. I mean, because some of our narcotics are brought to us from Detroit or Columbus, Ohio. There's really just no rhyme or reason sometimes to work if you think about it. But what we see a lot of is a lot of the drugs that come into Nashville are coming from the Atlanta region. So they have, you know, warehouses and things like that where they discreetly make the methamphetamine. Like I said, it comes across the border 90% of the time, probably in a liquid format in a big 55-gallon barrels, and then they'll have a mass cook somewhere to where they make. It's crystal clear, the ice is. I mean, a lot of it is just it looks just like ice you put in your drink, just little shards of it, like broken glass maybe. Yeah, anything else? I know I left some stuff out because a lot of stuff I wanted to relay, but I'm trying to be cognizant of the time that you have, and so
We're doing a great program.
Remind everyone about the board of directors meeting fair steering, and also tractor pull coming up. So hope to see everyone at all of them. Be safe.